Humanity tends to oscillate from one extremity to another, especially on social media. People like drama, so they like to emphasize the extremities. And the adult industry is no exception. We've seen a lot of people who vilify the porn industry. And if you expected to stumble upon such a video, I must disappoint you. Because nothing is black and white in this life. Weirdly enough, I'd like to point out the fact that there are some benefits to it. Firstly, you might learn some things, although you shouldn't. Treat the things that you see there as literal science. You have to take them with a grain of salt. But I believe that a certain period of time you need to watch adult movies, especially if you are a man. But not too long, because that's when it becomes to shift your perspective on women and sex in particular. In small doses, I've heard that it might be beneficial. I don't know how true is the fact that some soccer or football teams show such overly exciting images to their players before a match in order to get them stimulated. And I think they're not wrong in doing so. And if you are someone who can control yourself, I would advise you to watch from time to time XXX movies. That being said, I must add that it can become addicting, and it's not for everybody. Most of us might transform it into a habit, myself included. And in this context, I want to emphasize the fact that if you manage to get rid of it, it can become a very difficult and therefore productive way to stimulate and fortify your willpower, because once you get down that rabbit hole, you crave that stimulation, and when you like it, you're like a junkie who didn't take their dose. And it's actually a very challenging thing to do. Here I must confess that I've watched porn for about 16 years, and I quit at once. It was like a revelation. However, I might add that I didn't plan to do so. So it wasn't actually a conscious decision, if you understand where I'm getting at. For I was capable to do that because something deep down within me shifted. So I didn't resist myself. Because in a lot of situations, there is a part within us that struggles when we try to control it too harshly. It's as if we have a split personality, and when we try to control our unconscious side, it backfires on us. So I did that organically, although all of a sudden, without intending to do so. However, I must confess that now I have to exert some willpower in order to accomplish it, but not too much. I just got over it, and that's how I was able to do it. So, to put it frankly, it wasn't my merit, so to speak. And I know that I sound here like someone who has a double personality, but I value the most sincerity, and so that's why I'm sharing these things that might seem strange and akin to a behavior that psychopaths might exhibit. But I don't care. I think authenticity values more than these labels. Anyway, when thinking about making this video, I was reminiscing my early childhood when it was actually a deed, so to speak, that you might take pride in as a man or boy. The exact moment or age when you stumbled for the first time upon adult content. I remember to this day, I was 10, and I watched these videos at my best friend's house, who actually bought or whose parents were rich enough to buy them a PC. Now, bear in mind that was early 2000s. 2005 to be more precise. So yeah, I wasn't 10, I was 12 back then. And few of us, especially in the villages, had PCs. Most of us didn't. It was something very rare. I bought mine in 2007, and it was a laptop. But he had a PC back in 2005, and he was one of the few who had one amongst our neighborhood. So, yeah, I remember how we used to gather in groups, and we used to indulge in such things. Now, I don't think it alters your personality or something like that. We used to watch it as something that was fun and that would make us feel more mature. You know, boys also start drinking during that age because they think that makes them feel cool. And we share the same opinion. By the way, I never enjoyed drinking, but I did it just to be like other boys, you know, because that's how that age is. But back to the subject at hand. I was very happy with myself, and I remember distinctly telling other boys who were more mature than me, let's say 6 years older, that I was already 12 or 11, no, and I managed to watch such interesting and taboo content. And they were pretty amazed and also a little bit jealous because during that period, 5 years were enough. And Moldova isn't a very well developed country. At least it wasn't during that time. So I was ahead compared to the previous generation. And it's funny to think about it. But it became, let's say, an addiction when I reached about 14 or 15, and my libido and my testosterone levels grew higher and higher. And I believe it impacted me in a negative way because it made me desensitized to real sex. And that's the biggest drawback of it. It doesn't mean that you become a heinous individual and that you might want more serious stimulants, as Jordan Peterson pointed out. No, my taste remained the same during that period, but it made me had a skewed opinion regarding intimate relationships, and also it makes you less aroused. You become used to female nudity, and when you see it in real life, you don't get that drill. Of course, when you are young, your hormones are very strong, but still, you feel like something it's missing. And that's deeply ingrained in my brain because unfortunately I have a very good memory. So I don't believe I'll be able to forget that. Now, it doesn't mean that I regret or that I find this thing diabolical and I want to redeem myself. No, as I said, it was an organical change. So the circumstances made me do it. And these circumstances are related to my inner complexion and my psychology and my deep processes that are mostly subconscious. I can't explain what made me capable to do that because I didn't have to put a lot of effort into it. Although, and this is a subject that might touch upon it, I had to really train my will strength in order to be able to quit masturbating, or at least to reduce drastically the frequency. Now that's a real challenge. And if you want to test yourself, I urge you to do it. Where am I going with this? Now, I cannot guess when young guys watch mature content for the first time because they have access to the internet, roughly speaking, since they can walk. Of course, parents supervise this process, but you know, the internet is very intrusive, and I believe to them, even though they might not confess it to their closed ones. Of course, the parents are out of discussion. It can seem something almost normal. And I'm really curious to know how their brain and their vision is structured and influenced by it. Again, it doesn't mean that they will become some sexual maniacs or that their whole life is ruined and they will not find their way into heaven and will remain sinful for the rest of their lives. You can recover from that, but if you are blessed with an exceptional ability to store information, you are never getting over it completely. However, when it comes to me, I began to really enjoy sex now. And it's as if I'm born again. And I find more pleasure in it now that I am almost 33 than in my early 20s. You know, we discover our abilities and our limits over and over again. We reinvent ourselves. However, I don't believe that now it is a subject of a, a subject to boast about, you know, as it actually is the moment when you lose your virginity. That's something also very important to teenagers. And perhaps it is more important now when we have access to all this content, even though I was looking for a more interesting word that didn't come because I'm a little bit tired, but I believe I can survive until the end and tell you a story. So I want to stress that, you know, you can do it, but there has to you have to experience something that you don't completely comprehend deep down. Some shock or inner revolution that is not conscious. Because if you force yourself, your subconscious mind resists, and it's actually pretty hard to achieve something. And this is the most tricky thing regarding addictions in general. If you plan to get rid of it completely, you are doomed to fail. As I mentioned previously, when I stopped, I had no idea that I'll end it for almost all my life, even though I relapsed once, only once, in about 2 years and a half, but that doesn't count. Of course, the nudity that I see in artistic movies also isn't taken into account. That's art, and I'm not gonna just close my eyes the way my father used to tell me when we would watch movies together when I was a little kid. And some actress would show her tits, and he would just tell me, Eugene, put your head under the blanket. And I would follow his command, and now and then I would ask, is it time to, or will it be okay if I started to watch now? And the answer will be not yet, or I will just wait, and he would eventually tell me that it's okay now, you can come out. He also caught me and my cousin watching, I think it was Hustler TV, and I told this story in another video, but it was funny. And this kind of events make for interesting stories, but when you go through them, you might feel a little bit awkward and guilty, but that's life. And I want to end this video on a positive note, meaning that if you want to see how strong and steadfast your will is, you can do it. But if you struggle with this addiction, it's not the end of the world. And most of us have been there, even some women. I remember when I was studying philology, one girl told me that, and you are also watching porn or something, but she didn't refer to me, but we started to talk about sexuality, and said, sometimes we want it so bad that it feels like we are going crazy, and we watch some triple X clips, and she was referring to herself, but they are more how would I say, subtle about it, as always. And I guess we watch different things than us males then, but it doesn't matter, because life is short, and we have to live it to the fullest.